are effective prompts, and it's by Generative, University of Sydney. And before I go on to the agenda, I think I'll introduce the topic a bit. And I was thinking about prompts. And do you know what? It has become a powerful tool, undoubtedly, with a vast potential across various fields. But unlocking the true potential of AI hinges on our ability to communicate effectively with it. And I think when I wrote this, what came to my mind was the idea of the Aladdin with the lamp or the genie in the bottle. And he has three wishes, and he has to be very careful how to say what he wants so he gets exactly what he wants. He makes a wrong wish and something else turns up, which is not like, I don't want this. So I think it would be a good analogy to say that if you want to get the AI genie to do your bidding, you will have to think about the prompt in a very precise, concise, and intentional manner as to what do you, no ambiguity in your words, no ambiguity in your scope, so that you exactly get what you want. If you don't, luckily, this genie doesn't limit itself to three wishes. And it allows you to keep on refining and learning. And I think it's Oscar or somebody who has given up a very good diagram of how you move with AI. You know about it, you work with it, you get the results, you reflect and keep on refining. It's like a model that you keep on, improving yourself and refining whatever you're doing. So luckily for us, this genie is very generous. But we have to be very careful. So the agenda is in front of you, and we will learn the language of prompts. We will learn why they are important and how to optimize. I think that is the key. And some examples of and I'd love to introduce, and I'm very proud and honored to have Jenny Liu with us. He is one of the very well known names in AI. And I got to know about him by reading a lot about AI on the net. And his name and a few others repeatedly cropped up. And he was very kind to give us time. So, who is Jenny usually really is something, I was looking, and you state you're very humble, Jenny. I hardly found any information on your LinkedIn profile or your university profile. You just state two lines, but I saw that you are an associate professor in the educational innovation team and an honorary associate in the Faculty of Science, because you are, surprisingly enough, a molecular biologist by profession. So that's what you do. And a programmer by night, you write yourself, and a researcher and academic developer by the day, and educator at heart. I loved that line. And I see that you have at least, I think, 80 blogs written by you on AI on the University on Sydney. And in your less than 25 years of a career, you have published, I think, over 50 papers. I was like, what have you been doing? How could you do so much? And so that says it's all about you. And I think very, very honored and delighted to have you, and over to you.
Thanks so much for your invitation, and it's an honor to be here with you today. Thank you for giving up your time over the next hour to talk about this genie. I really like that analogy. Thank you for that. It's yeah, be specific, otherwise a genie will give you some weird stuff. That's really cool. So let me share my screen and we can get started with crafting effective prompts. Screen, there we go. Okay, so I'm from the University of Sydney and here to share with you some of my experiences. It's not going to be the answer to prompting, but just some ideas around it of what I've found to be quite effective from using generative AI. But before we kind of go into the prompting aspect of things, it's useful to think about large language models and kind of their impact on education and what it means to be prompting an AI. Now, these AIs are built on these things called neural networks. On the left is a picture of a biological neural network, so the things that exist in our brains. All those blue things are neurons, nerve cells essentially, and they're connected to other nerve cells through those connections. Okay, so the axons and dendrites. On the right is an artificial neural network, and it was actually built to study biological neural networks, which is why artificial neural networks look very similar to the networks that are in our brain. We have the circles, which are neurons, and then connections between the different neurons. Now, the real artificial neural networks that power things like ChatGPT and Gemini are much, much bigger than one you see on the screen. They have billions or trillions of those connections, okay? Not just tens, what you see on the screen. And the connections are a bit unknowable. The people who have invented these massive artificial neural networks don't really know how exactly it is they work. They don't know which part of the network interprets verbs, which part of the network thinks about animals, which part of the network thinks about other words. Okay, but they know that it just does work because of the way that it mimics, I guess, the human brain. So the knowledge around neural networks is important because it affects the way that we think about prompting. So if I show you this prompt, write 3 questions about marketing, okay? When I give this prompt to this artificial neural network, then particular parts of the neural network will activate, okay? So as a very simple example, oversimplifying it obviously, maybe the 3 questions activates those 2 neurons up the top and marketing activates those 2 neurons down the bottom in another layer, okay? But if I change my prompt a bit and say, write 3 multiple choice questions about marketing, maybe slightly different neurons will activate. Okay, maybe it's the first and the third neuron in the second layer, and maybe it's the third and the fifth neurons in the third layer which will operate. Okay, and these neurons, these artificial networks, have thousands, millions of layers and trillions of these connections, and so it's a bit unknowable which neurons are activating at any particular time. Okay? Now, if I change my prompt a bit more and say instead of 3 multiple choice questions about marketing, and I say instead 3 multiple choice questions about Shakespeare, then maybe other neurons will activate. Okay, so when you are talking to this genie, like Roshana says, the words that you say will activate different parts of this genie's neural network. Okay, and depending on which parts of the neural network are activated and how it then processes your prompt, the output will be slightly different. Okay, this is why a slight change in the wording of your prompt can sometimes make a very big effect in the output that the AI generates for you. So there are some implications of this understanding which are important to think about. And one of them is we often see, at least at my university, we often see staff and students use AIs like Google. They type in 1 or 2 words, okay, and they expect this AI genie to be able to give them a really useful response just based on 1 or 2 words. But they misunderstand the neural network nature of these large language models or these AIs, in that you need to give it I guess almost a story, a longer kind of more specific a prompt in order for it to actually generate something which is useful for you. Okay, so don't use these AIs like Google. The second thing is hallucinations are expected. So if I were to say to you, think back to when you were 5 years old, okay? When you were 5 years old, think back to something that either a parent or a carer or someone in your family said to you that stuck with you. Don't tell me what it is, but just think about this, okay? Now, would you be able to tell me word for word what that person said? You probably couldn't, but could you tell me the essence of what they said, the idea of what they said, the tone which they said it in, how much love they had for you when they said it? You could do that, okay? Now, what's just happened in your brain is I've given you a prompt, which is think of something someone said to you when you were 5. That's a prompt. And that prompt has been processed through your many layers of neurons inside your head in order to generate that completion, the recollection of that thing that was said to you when you were 5 years old. Okay. Now, when you thought about that thing that was said to you when you were 5 years old, I would never say to you, even though you can't say word for word what that person said, I would never say to you that you hallucinated. Okay, even though you pretty much made up what they said, even though you kind of remember roughly what they said, okay, but the words you made up. A similar thing happens inside neural networks of these AIs when you ask them a question or give them a prompt, Okay, so they hallucinate by design because that's how our brains and their brains work. Okay, and hallucination isn't always a bad thing because you might want the AI to be very creative, okay, in a prompt, and therefore hallucination or this kind of generation is actually really useful. The way that these AIs work through these neural networks means that when you work with these AIs, it's more like a conversation, okay, as opposed to like a database search, because it operates more like a brain than a search engine, okay? Think about that neural network again working in the background. And so when we work with these AIs, just like when Rukhsana was saying we work with the genie, it's very important to give the genie or the AI very specific instructions that will help it to understand what you want, just like you would a coworker who has read a lot of books. You want it to basically understand in more detail what you want. But fundamentally, there's no magic about prompting. Good prompting is just good communication. And many of you are educators, and educators are really good at communicating. And so you are naturally already really good at prompting. Okay, it's just good communication at the end of the day. And the other thing that I guess educators, it's important for educators to think about is that learning, teaching, and assessment haven't really changed because of AI. The fundamentals of good learning and teaching and assessment are still the same. Okay, so giving students practice, helping them think through analogies, building relationships with them, having authentic assessment that actually encourages students to do work, giving good feedback. All of these haven't changed fundamentally when it comes to AI. How we go about doing these has changed a bit, and AI can support us. And so a question for us, I guess, today is how can prompting and using generative AI help you with all of these things, okay? Things that we already know, really important for learning, teaching, and assessment, but how can we use AI to do some of these things better, okay? And how can we give AI to our students to do some of these things better? So I'll show you some examples of prompts today and talk you through some which will address some of these ideas on the screen today around good learning, teaching, and assessment. Right, so the basics of prompt engineering. These are the main tools that I personally use. I quite like Claude, and I obviously like ChatGPT. Gemini is okay. It's getting better, and Copilot for Web is okay too. It does give you a free access to GPT-4, although when I tried to load Copilot just now before the session started, it crashed on me, and so it didn't work. But anyway, I'll run most of my prompts today through either ChatGPT or Gemini. But the prompts that I show you today and the approach to prompting should work for most of these generative AI tools. So to start with some terminology around the prompt is the message you send to the AI. Okay, the prompt leads to a completion, which is the message the AI sends back to you. Okay, so you'll hear me say prompt and completion a lot today. In the middle is something called the model, and the model is the AI engine behind the magic, I guess, of the genie. And so the prompt gets fed through to, for example, GPT-4 if you're using Copilot or if you're using ChatGPT Plus. And then that GPT-4 model is the neural network, which then produces the completion that you see inside the software. Okay, so prompt goes to the model, goes to the completion, and that's what you see. Now, something that's important about I guess how these AIs work, which I found quite surprising when I found out the technicality behind this, is how they look at a conversation. So let me show you a conversation. So this is a very small screenshot of a very long prompt. Okay, so this is my first prompt to the AI. Then the AI will give me a short completion. Okay, so it's this tiny thing here. So I've got one prompt and one completion. And then when I type my next prompt, AI may give me the next completion, and then I might type my third prompt, and AI will need to give the third completion as part of this conversation. Okay. Now, this was quite interesting to me when I found out about this, that when AI tries to respond to my third prompt, or any prompt for that matter, when AI tries to respond to my latest prompt, what it actually needs to do is it actually needs to read through very quickly the entire conversation that it's had with me over the past however many minutes. Okay, that's how the AI generates its next completion. Now, this window of text that the AI is able to absorb in order to generate the next completion is called a context window. And the context window is different depending on which model you use. Okay, so for example, I've got 3 prompts from me and 2 completions from the AI. So the AI will then read my latest prompt as well as the whole conversation that's gone past in order to generate its next completion. Now, this context window is limited, which means that when I ask the AI my fourth prompt, the AI again needs to reread the conversation. But because its context window is limited, that context window shifts down, which means essentially that as my conversation gets longer and longer, it isn't able to read parts of the conversation which were earlier on. Okay, it's essentially forgotten what we discussed just a minute ago. Okay, because, or 2 minutes ago, 5 minutes ago, whatever, because the context window has shifted down. Okay, now in reality, this context window is not this small. Okay, I've just drawn it like this for ease. But in reality, the context window is about, for GPT 3.5, it's about 3,000 words. GPT-4, it's about 6,000 words. GPT-4o, which is the latest model released just a week ago, that's about 96,000 words. Claude 3, even bigger. And Gemini 1.5, if you have the Pro version, it's even bigger as well. Okay, so really the context window is sizable, but for the slightly older models, which you may be using in some tools, the context window is limited. Okay, so if you feel that the AI is forgetting some things you've told it, it's possible that you've exceeded the context window and you just need to remind it of things you've told it before. The other important aspect of the context window is that because the AI, strangely enough, in order to kind of generate the next completion in your conversation, it needs to reread everything you've done. When you want to talk to the AI about a new topic, press reset. Okay, start a new conversation because you don't want to pollute your context window. All right. So if you have two different topics in the context window, it confuses the AI because it says, well, you talked about that there, but now you talk about this here. What's going on? Okay. So whenever you start a new topic, make sure you start a new conversation and therefore reset the context window. All right. So that's that. I was thinking that maybe we could spend a tiny bit of time thinking about the prompts that you already use, that you like using or want to improve. And I'll share this. This Padlet to the Zoom chat. So if you do have any prompts that you want me to have a look at to try and improve, or you would like to share with colleagues here who are in the Zoom together, then please feel free to pop that into the Padlet. Okay. While you're doing that, what I'll do is I'll keep going on with sharing a bit more about prompting tips, and then we can go back into the Padlet later on and see how we're going. Okay. All right, let me go back into the thing. Okay, yeah, and yeah, just having a look at the Zoom chat, the prompts that were on the previous slide here, you are not meant to see those. There was just a picture. Okay. All right, so let me go back into this. Okay, so the main prompting tips, and I'll go through each one of these in turn because they're useful in their own way. Are things like, give the AI a role, give it some tasks, be specific, use formatting, encourage thinking step by step, provide examples, repeat yourself, be specific and provide alternatives, and also you can also ask AI to help you write a prompt. It's pretty good at prompting itself, really, most of the time. Okay? So I'm going to go through each one of these tips in turn. Okay, so the first tip is I guess how would I call this? The structure of your prompts. Okay, there's lots of different structures out there. Okay, Roxana has a document which uses the create structure, which is very useful. Personally, I find the RTRI structure quite useful, and you'll find lots of other different structures out on the internet. They're all pretty much the same, and they all work fairly well. Okay. For me, the RTRI structure stands for role, task, requirements, and instructions. Okay, so you give the AI a role. This tends to help it behave better. Give it a task, give it some requirements, and give it some instructions. I'll show you an example of this very soon. Okay, so this is an example that follows that kind of RTRI structure. I'm going to copy this into ChatGPT, and then I'm going to explain it while ChatGPT tries to generate a completion for me. Okay, so remember how we said role, task, requirements, instructions. Okay, this is the role. All right. Usually when you give it a role, it helps the AI to perform better. Okay, and usually when you tell the AI it's really good, like you're award-winning or you're an expert or you're world-leading and those kind of things, it helps it to perform better as well. Right. So role and give the AI expertise. The next thing is the task. Okay, so this is the task. Make 2 multiple choice questions. The task can be very short. The requirements are what comes next. So these are the requirements. It has to be at a second-year level, and it has to be about these topics and a combination of these topics. Okay, so we've got the role, the task, the requirements, and finally the instructions. Okay, so specifically what we wanted to do, we wanted to provide feedback, give the correct answer, and do these things. Okay, so role, task, requirements, instructions help to make a prompt that the AI can understand better. Okay, you don't always have to have every single one of those components, and you don't have to have them in that particular order either. Okay, but if you roughly have those 4 components inside a prompt, it tends to help you talk to the AI more effectively. And so down here, we'll see we've got the completion from the AI, and we've got some questions around geochemicals and these kind of things, and some feedback, just like we taught it to do. What you'll see here is that these questions are quite boring. These questions are quite boring because they're all recall questions, all memorization questions. Okay, so what I'm going to show you here is I'm going to do another prompt here. I'm going to ask the AI, what is Bloom's taxonomy? Okay, and for those who don't know, Bloom's taxonomy, well, actually, the AI will explain it to us what Bloom's taxonomy is, but it's a way to basically categorize levels of activity or achievement inside education. So the basic level is knowledge and recall, okay, and then you have things like application, analysis, and creation at higher levels of Bloom's. So the reason why I'm asking the AI about Bloom's taxonomy in this particular conversation is because I want to get the AI to make me a better question, okay? And remember what we said about the context window? Okay, so now the context window, the conversation so far, has my request for the question. It has the AI's first completion. Then it has my second prompt, which is tell me about Bloom's. And now it has the second completion, okay, which is the information about Bloom. So that means in my third prompt, I can say, can you make another geosciences question at Bloom's level analyzing? And because as part of this context window, it has that information about, what I want as a geosciences instructor and also about Bloom's taxonomy. Now it can make me a much better question. Okay. So here we are taking advantage of the chat nature and the conversational nature, and also taking advantage of the context window in order to get the AI to do better at what we want to do. Okay. And also leveraging that original idea of role, task, requirements, and instructions. Okay, so you can see that this question is a much better question that will actually test our students' knowledge and understanding as opposed to just memorization. Okay, so that's that. The other tip that I have for you is around using formatting. I'm going to I won't bother going in and out of the PowerPoint. Just do it like this. Oops, that's the wrong button. Okay, so here the tip is to use formatting. And the reason why formatting works really well is because when ChatGPT and Gemini and those kind of things were trained, they read a lot of books and read a lot of journal articles and those kind of things, but they also read a lot of computer code. And in computer code, a special language called Markdown inside computer code, which is very common across the internet. Double asterisk means bold text. 1 hash means heading 1, 2 hashes means heading 2. A dash means dot point. 3 quotation marks surrounding a bit of text means that, that's a long piece of text I want you to hold together. And this backtick means code and those kind of things. So I'll show you what this operationalizes as. Right? The reason why you may want to sometimes use these formatting marks is because it helps the AI understand particular parts of your prompt. Okay, so I'll show you an example. In this example, this is my kind of base prompt here. Write a 300-word reflection based on some assignment parameters and ensure your reflection addresses achievement at the level described in the performance criteria. Okay, so what you're seeing here is basically I'm saying this is in bold. Okay, like pay attention to those words. I'm also saying this is also in bold. Pay attention to those words. And now I'm also saying this is a heading. Okay, it's an important heading. And this is the other important heading. And I'm going to put text after those headings. Okay, so let me give you a longer one. I'm going to copy and paste one into ChatGPT. And again, I'll start a new conversation here because I don't want to pollute that context window. And I'm going to send off my prompt to ChatGPT, and I'm going to then talk through it while ChatGPT responds to my prompt. Okay, so again, like we said, asterisk means bold, and then these hashes mean heading. So what I'm doing here basically is saying, okay, I'm going to give you some assignment parameters and just look out for that as a heading. And then from here on are all my assignment parameters. Okay. I'm using these dashes here because those are dot points to the AI. Okay, so I can say these are the dot points you need to consider, okay, or bullet points. And then later on, I've got the second heading for the AI, okay? And then the second chunk of text that I wanted to pay attention to. So if you use your headings right like this and use your dot points and bold and those kind of things, it helps the AI to better understand the parts of your long prompt. Because if you just had a really long prompt with no formatting, just like when we read a very long paragraph, we say we're confused because we don't know where one idea starts and one idea finishes. And so we need some formatting when we read things. Similar to AI, it needs some formatting, especially if you're going to give it a really long prompt like this. Okay. And after this long prompt, then it's able to give you its completion. Okay. So this particular example is an interesting one, not only because it demonstrates the use of these formatting marks, but also because it's a nice way that you as an educator can write examples of work or use AI to write or create examples of work for your students. So, students often ask us, give me an example of a distinction assignment. And we say, I can't generate one, but now AI can. Okay. And using this kind of prompt structure, you can also for yourself generate these examples for your students to use. Okay. And it relies on the I guess the use of these formatting marks. Okay, I'm going to leave the PowerPoint view in this mode because I want to keep tabbing between PowerPoint and also the ChatGPT interface. So I don't have to keep going in and out of the application. Okay, so those are formatting marks. The other thing that I wanted to show or talk to you about was this idea of thinking step by step. Okay, so when we work with a teaching assistant, for example, we might tell the teaching assistant to do something, and then we say, oh, maybe we should have given them step-by-step instructions because that would help them to work better. And there's the same idea with AI. If you give AI step-by-step instructions or encourages the thing step by step, it often helps it to perform better and give you better completions. Okay, so an example is here. I'm going to have a look at this prompt here. So this prompt is, again, you got the role, okay, act as an expert with extensive knowledge. That's its role. And the task is here. Okay, so write a case study. And the requirements is kind of here. Okay, excuse me, it's got to be a drug reaction to methotrexate and detailed information needs to be provided. And then some of the instructions are down here. Okay, so it's a prompt that roughly follows a RTRI role, task, requirements, instructions model. And I've given it some information about what I want, but a more powerful version of this prompt is here on this page here. Okay, so this prompt here, similar to the previous one that we saw, act as an expert, write a case study. But what we've done here is we've detailed the steps that the AI should take in order to generate the completion better. Okay, so I've said, begin by describing this, okay? Then you detail the symptoms, and then you discuss this. Then you continue by doing this, and then you correlate this, and then finally you conclude by doing this, okay? So if you're able to give the AI these detailed instructions, step by step and encourages things step by step, it often helps the AI to perform better. So I'm going to show you this in ChatGPT. And it's able to produce me a fairly good case study, actually. Okay. So the idea behind this is that the more you lay something out for the AI, the better it will be able to do your or address your needs. Okay, so just like we're trying to say at the beginning, this genie in this AI genie, you need to give it these specific instructions, and using formatting, using role, task, requirements, instructions, using step-by-step instructions helps the genie to perform better. Okay. Sometimes, and this is an interesting trick, sometimes you can, and I'll start a new, I'll stop this, this generation and I'll start a new chat. Sometimes what you can do if you're creating or making a prompt, what you can do is, let's just use the simple prompt for now, okay? Sometimes a little trick that you can try is you literally at the very end of your prompt, you can literally say to AI, just encourage think step by step. You can just say, think step by step. Okay. If you just say think step by step, that little addition there can actually encourage your AI to actually think step by step without you necessarily needing to lay out all the steps. Okay. So this case study again is still pretty good, and we didn't have to spend all that time describing the steps out. We just had to encourage the AI to think step by step. Okay. Just like when you're working with a coworker, you give them some instructions. They may be really confused, but then you might just say, it's okay. Slow down, think about this step by step, you'll be okay. Okay. And for some reason, this works for AI. All right. Another prompting technique that is useful to do, especially for more complex tasks, is to actually provide the large language model or the AI some examples. Okay. And so these examples can be used to demonstrate to the AI how you want the task to be approached, showing how it should do it, and also what you expect when it gives the completion to you. Okay, so this helps to steer how the AI behaves because it gives an example. So just like when you're working with a teaching assistant, okay, you might give them an instruction, and you might say, "Here's an example of something. I want you to do it like this." Okay, so that's exactly what we're trying to do here by providing the AI some examples. Okay, so I'm going to show an example here. This is a very long prompt, and this very long prompt is a biochemistry calculation. Okay, and in this very long prompt, I'll go into ChatGPT again, and I'll just show you this extremely long prompt. Let me send it through ChatGPT first. Okay, so this prompt is this long. Okay. The actual question I want the AI to answer is the bit down here, okay? But I've included all this stuff up here, okay? Because this is my example to the AI, all right? So in this example up the top, I've said, this is my question. If my question looks like this, then the answer needs to look like this, okay? I want you to lay out the step-by-step instructions of actually solving this. And I've given essentially the AI a worked solution. Okay. And then after I've given the AI the worked solution, I've then given it a new question for it to answer. Okay. And what this example has done for the AI is it's then able to more accurately take my question and give it an answer. Okay, and this works particularly well for the STEM disciplines, so engineering, maths, calculations, and those kind of things, in that usually the AI doesn't perform very well with those kind of prompts. But if you're able to give it an example, often it actually helps the AI to respond in a way that is actually more accurate. Okay, so examples, really important, especially in the STEM disciplines, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and maybe even medicine, in actually getting the AI to do correct calculations. So these are the correct numbers. Okay. All right. So when you browse the internet and you look for tips on prompting, you might sometimes hear words that call this one-shot prompting or few-shot prompting. Okay. All that means is that one shot means one example. Okay. Few shot means few examples. And so we just saw an example of one-shot prompting because we gave the AI one example to use. Okay. So one-shot prompting, few-shot prompting really helps the AI, especially for more complex prompts, because you demonstrate to the AI the kind of thing you expect it to do. And sometimes if I'm having trouble with prompts and the completion that are being generated, I go, okay, it's not doing quite the right thing in the format that I need it, so I'm going to give it a couple of examples. And once you give it a couple of examples, it actually helps the AI say, oh, okay, I see what you want. I'm going to generate it in that style as well. Okay, so one-shot prompting, few-shot prompting, very useful to get AI to do specifically exactly what you're after. The interesting thing about the prompt just then, actually, and let me just go back to ChatGPT. This prompt just now is an example of one-shot prompting, but it is also an example of what we call chain of thought prompting. Okay, chain of thought prompting is where you give the AI an example of how it should think. Okay, the chain of thought that you would go through in your head in order to solve or answer the problem. So in this chain of thought, we're telling it basically, you know, first you need to do this, okay? Then you need to do this, and then you need to do this, okay? So we've basically combined that kind of step-by-step example with giving AI examples, okay? So this is quite a complex prompt, I guess. So all of these techniques that you've heard so far, you can combine them, all right? So that prompt that we saw there about the chemistry calculations, that was a combination of one-shot prompting plus a demonstration of chain of thought prompting, which is get it to think step by step. Okay. Other tips, provide specifics and alternatives. Okay, so we know that generative AI can sometimes make things up. Okay, just like we make things up a little bit when we're asked to think about something we read or were told a long time ago. Okay, the more information you give the AI, the better it will perform because it doesn't have to make as many assumptions. And also it's able to locate the part of its neural network which will best be suited to answer your question. Okay. And this last one's an interesting one. If you give it an out, it's less likely to need to make things up as well. And I'll show you an example of this very soon. Right, so more specifics, the better, because it helps the AI think about what you actually want it to do. Okay. The other related tip here is you can also ask AI to help you improve your prompt. Okay, the generative AI tools themselves, for some reason, they're actually really good at prompting themselves. And so you can ask the AI itself to help you improve your prompt. So one prompt, meta prompt, I guess, that I like using is something like this. You know, help me improve the following prompt for a large language model like GPT-4, provide critiques of the prompt and suggest improvements and explain why these improvements work. And so you can literally have a prompt. So let me grab a bad prompt. I'm going to use this as an example. I'm just going to copy part of that prompt. So new chat. Okay, so that's a bad prompt because there's not enough detail, okay, in there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in this kind of meta prompt on top of that prompt. Okay, so the prompt is basically help me improve the prompt, and this is the prompt. Okay, include detailed information. I'm going to make it an even worse prompt here. There we go. I'm going to send that to ChatGPT. Okay, and so it's going to give me a critique. Your current prompt is good, but it could be refined. Again, you see, depth, clarity, detail. Okay, it's too vague right now, too broad, doesn't specify those kind of things. All right, it's not defined enough. And so it's going to suggest some improvements for me. Okay, so I need to define what elements a case study should include. So interesting, the bit that I cut out, and then add some context. And so basically, what's it going to say here? Yep. So why is it important? Those kind of things. Who's the audience, and what's structured? And so it's also going to rewrite my bad prompt for me. Okay. So you can see here what it's doing here is it's almost rewriting the prompt that I originally had, isn't it? But it's helping me to make my prompt better in a really easy way. Okay, so it's saying write a detailed case study, the audience, medical case students, include the following, this kind of stuff. Okay, and it even explains to me why it's a good prompt now. Okay, so use AI to help you improve your own prompts. Okay, and this meta prompt might help. And again, you can write your own meta prompt as well. A question coming through the chat, do these prompts work on 3.5 or only on 4? 3.5 is not very good at following prompts, I have to say. It is 18 months or 2 years old now almost, and it's not very good at following prompts. So if you can get access to 4.0, GPT 4.0, try to use that if you can. So copilot.microsoft.com allows you to access GPT-4 for free. And Gemini even itself is probably better than GPT 3.5. Okay, so try to avoid 3.5 if you can. Use some of the tools that give you access for free to 4.0. Okay, what's another example I want to show you? Maybe I'll do this one as well. Okay, so this one is an interesting prompt in that it's got the usual kind of prompt up here, But then it's also got this little thing down here. And in this particular prompt, it's not so important, but I just wanted to show it to you to demonstrate it, in that sometimes if you give the AI a tricky prompt to do and it needs to do a bit too much thinking to get your completion out, sometimes if you give it a escape route like this, so if you need more information or if you don't know about this, just say it. It helps the AI say, oh, okay, I don't have to make things up now. Okay, so it reduces hallucinations a bit. All right, so get AI to fix your prompt up, really powerful. And also, the more information you give it, the fewer assumptions it makes and the less it needs to hallucinate. Okay, just going through some of the chat. 4.0 not available in Pakistan. So can you guys access, so you can access Gemini. Can you access
Yeah.
Bing Chat or Copilot?
Yeah, I was going to respond to that something better than ChatGPT 3 is 5 is Gemini, and that is available. And I think ChatGPT 4 point Omni that's coming along is going to be free too, but it's not available yet. So I think there's a lot happening and we just need to. And I've also seen there are a couple of other sites that use a composite of AI tools like Poe. Poe uses Copilot, I think, and some other, you could try different responses. It's very comprehensive. So it's about trial and testing the multiple thousands of tools, perhaps. But we have made the job easy for you. I think we have got in our tool set some of the free tools available in Pakistan, which are not bad for certain tasks. But again, I think, Jenny, you know better that some tools are better for some purposes than others, and so not all tools are able to do everything that you ask of it. So you'll be looking at different tools for different purposes. That's the other catch. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's I think a great message as well. So when we use software, we don't always use Microsoft Word to create a balance sheet, for accounting. We use Excel for that, and we know we use Excel for that because it's more suited. And so some tools for AI are more suited to doing some prompts and some work than other tools. That's a really great point. Okay, so let me go back to this. So that the thing about prompting is that the more you do it, the better you get at it. Because you can, after one prompt, you think, because we're humans and we have metacognition and we think about what we do, you kind of prompt and you think, oh, hang on a sec, that didn't quite work very well. Okay, so there are some resources that you can follow, and I think, Roshana, you have access to my slides, so you can send this around to people afterwards. And these are links to different resources. I find all of these quite useful. So the CLT itself has a really good, effective prompting guide, which is just a few pages long, very well worth a read. There's an interesting paper. I'll actually show all of these now, actually, that will help you think through some interesting prompt tricks. And also OpenAI has their own prompt engineering guide as well. But the common themes amongst all of these are really just, be clear, be well structured, give the AI a persona, be detailed, don't give it super hard tasks, and also be concise in how you use it. Roshana, sorry, I cut you off, I think.
Yeah, perfect. I see that there is one question, Jenny, and we'll make sure you go away before your hour is up. And I have some comments to make. There was one question about some formula. Let me see. Can we get? Yes, you will get the slides. Don't worry. These will be available, paid with. If we lead AI step by step to an unsolved mathematics problem, will AI be able to give a solution? That's a tricky one.
It's a good question. So these AIs that you use these days are mostly large language models, and so they're very good at language, not so good at mathematics. But if you or your students have access to things like ChatGPT Plus, ChatGPT Plus can have plugins that bring in other tools like Wolfram Alpha, which can really solve mathematical problems. And so one of the most important words with AI is the word yet. And so, AI may not be able to do it yet, but maybe in 3 months' time, it will be able to do it. And so you need to just remember that.
Yeah. There was somebody, how do you rate Poe? Though somebody said, have you used Poe? But where would you rate Poe in terms of 3.5 and 4 and 4.0 sort of stuff?
So from my understanding, Poe uses different language models under the surface. It's kind of a skin on top of the GPTs, basically. And so Poe, I think, is probably equivalent to, depending on maybe which level you use, maybe 3.5 or 4.
Okay.
I think skin over it.
Yeah, around that level, you're right. Chemical reactions are shown in codes, Python. How can we understand these codes? And I was like, you understand these codes because you study them. But do you have a better answer? Because I have no idea about Python and codes, except that these are programming language.
That's a good question. I don't quite understand the question. Can you maybe rewrite that question into chat, and then I can try to address it after some other questions.
Yeah. Chemical reactions are again the same. In your example, is there a reason you asked ChatGPT to produce Bloom's taxonomy? That's Alex Henley, I think, from IIS. IIS, I think, Institute of Please, I do not know. Anyway, to produce, in order them and then to draw on it, or was it for your benefit, or does it help ensure accurate responses from? I think you explained a lot anyway, Jenny, a little bit of a revision what you did. Why did you use ChatGPT? That's the question for Bloom's
So
taxonomy. Yeah.
yeah, no, good question. So this is the original prompt. So basically, I did this prompt first, waited for a completion, and then I did my second prompt here, and then waited for completion, did my third prompt. So what I could have done here, I could have said two multiple choice questions at Bloom's level analysis. Okay, this may have worked, but it would have needed the AI in this neural network to really quickly kind of escape from this and then think about Bloom's and then come back again. But then the clarity that was afforded by actually separately asking about Bloom's, I think helps the AI to do this. So you're welcome to try, this adapted prompt about Bloom's level analysis. It probably will work, but it might work better if you have that separate thing. Again, how these neural networks work, like this, it's a bit of a mystery to people, okay? And so just try different prompts and see which one gives you the good result.
Yeah. Very interesting, Hadika from Air University. She says, in a nutshell, she's saying, do we really need to use AI? Why can't we do the same amount of effort ourselves? And my straight answer is no, lady. It makes my job less time consuming, less stressful, and it actually gives me a very structured answer. And sometimes you miss out on some areas, no matter how much thinking you have done to it, and AI will throw it up to you. And I've said, oh, that's something I hadn't considered before. So it's just an additional assistant to help you with your own thinking. Danny, would you put it any other way?
That's exactly how I put it. It isn't another assistant. It's an assistant that you have 24/7 to you, which is pretty smart, and use it to help you, basically, yeah.
Somebody is asking me, does Poe overcome the limitations it has? Roman from American University of Central Asia, Bishkek. Does it overcome the limitations? Poe, I think it is talking about. I mean, does it make unavailable for Pakistan AI's work? I did not understand. Does it overcome the limitations? I mean, does it make unavailable for Pakistan's? No, it is available, Roman, if I understand what you're saying. It is available for us, but I frankly do not know the limitations. Are there any limitations to Poe, and that can be overcome just by using it, or is there type? The tips that you have given, I understand, but is there some other, mechanics to it to use it better?
I guess maybe the original question around the Poe was, does Poe get around the geo blocks and allow you to use it in countries where you can't use the other tools? And it might. I don't quite know. But if Poe is available in Pakistan, it may mean that that's one way to get access to the more powerful models without having to use things like Claude.
Okay. Yeah, Claude is not available. I'm trying it, but they said we haven't given access to your country. We have uploaded the slides. Why are you prompting these tools? Are you getting anything benefits from this company? And that's quite an odd question. I wish I was. I would use it anyway. I mean, what a delight to use it and get some benefit from it monetarily and as well as get benefit from my work. ChatGPT, how much is helpful in linguistics? Isn't it all about linguistics? Anyway, Jenny, could you please sort of elaborate on that?
Yeah, ChatGPT is really good at linguistics. It can speak, I think, over 100 different languages, and input and output wise, I think it's really powerful in linguistics education. So yeah, definitely use it for different purposes there. Translation, understanding culture and intonation and all those kinds of things is really good at that.
Yes. So I think most of them are sort of saying thank you and I don't see there are any more questions. Gohar, if there are any, do alert me. But Jenny, I have a couple of things to confess. I thought I had done a reading on AI and that I knew quite a bit. And after your session, I've totally flowed. I realized I have not even tried to even pick the brains of AI because I was not following any. I didn't know the context. I didn't know that I did notice that after 3, 4 prompts on the same message, the draft became weaker and weaker, and I didn't like it. And I said, no, 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 this is not what I want. I didn't know that was a limitation of the AI model. I think what you talked about uh, polluting data is the concept that I had not registered before, and the value of characters of prompting. How do you really, the characteristics, put them up together are very important. So thank you so much. But I do have one question. I see in literature either the right prompting or the right prompt engineering. And though there is a tendency to say that prompting is better, could you sort of just help us understand what's the difference between the two, if there is any difference?
I personally don't feel there's any difference between prompting and prompt engineering. It's just a way of saying how we talk to these AIs. And so I know some people are quite afraid of the word prompt engineering because it makes it feel difficult and unattainable. But I think yeah, as long as we think about these AIs like we're just talking with these AIs, then I think it's fine. Habib does have a question. I can see his hand up.
Yeah, I know. There is one question which is very interesting. Asif Shami from our campus, most of the LLMs are trained on already existing data. Can AI generate data itself? Now, that's a good question.
Okay, can AI generate? So I'm just trying to find the question so I can read it. Okay, can AI generate data itself? It's an interesting question. So when
Yeah.
you think about, I guess, how the neural network is working, what comes out at the on the right side of the neural network is essentially new combinations of words. And so in the sense, in effect, it is generating new data and new information because just like our brains do when we take in stuff and we output stuff, we're also generating new things too. So yes, it kind of is.
Yeah. Yeah. It is, it sort of learns from you as well. I think that's what they say. So, but you made me realize that prompting is not that simple and you really have to be very, very careful. And those tips are excellent. And I see, in the chat, how thankful everybody is for having learned it. 236 have still stayed with us. Many have left. Because they had classes. And I think, how many countries did we have with us, God?
More than 25 countries.
Oh, wow, Jenny. So thank you so much. And I would like to leave you with some resources with Jenny's, but would you put up the last slide, Gohar? And we wanted to show you some of the resources that we have done that will make your life easy. The first one is a 5-page infographic. Could you roll it out? It's a guidebook for faculty, and all the underlines carries links to material. Please keep moving. Don't dwell on it. So it's before the semester, start of the semester, end of the semester, after the semester, and how to be prepared, guidelines for usage. So everything that you need in 5 pages as a very attractive infographic one of my work study students helped me put it up together. We worked on this together, and it's really, really will be helpful for you during all these sessions. You have just one infographic, and it will, and then we have some other resources, and we'll share these with you. This is another one that Danny was talking about. And you talked about model. We say these are frameworks. And actually, I have tried to put a comparison of different frameworks, even why prompting frameworks are better suited to certain tasks and not some other tasks. And so there you will have to play with the prompts according to the type of task you have. Thank you so much, Gohar. And how do I really thank you, Jenny? This was one of the most powerful and inspiring sessions that I had attended. So amazing. Thank you so much. You really, moved my gray cells, agitated them when I said, what have I been doing so far for the past year? Didn't do anything well. So thanks. And there are lots of thanks coming. And we're very, very honored to have you again. Thank you so much, Jenny.
Thanks so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your time. So I think people don't want to go. There are 2:32 here. And if there aren't any questions, I think we'll bid goodbye to all of you and thank you. Thank you.